Hello there, castle fanatics! Today I am going to do part 2 of this castle. We're going to focus on its beautiful architecture and its quite interesting geography. Originally it was quite a tiny tower house which just served purely to house the Crichtons. It grew bigger and expanded its lands, ending up with a hint of Italian-styled architecture and quaint bedchambers to further make this castle more lavish. I recommend to watch the part 1 of Crichton Castle as I focus on the history, which is the whole foundation of how the architecture came about. If you want to know the history of Crichton Castle, please click on the card at the top of the video. There is also a link in the description below. Anyway, let us get started with its architecture. At the time of John de Crichton, many things such as wars and battle went between various Scottish clans. The biggest threat was of course England. That is why castles had to be well equipped for defence in order for the family to be protected, but also to protect people who worked in there too. Keep in mind that there were probably a lot of merchants trading in the castle and had to evacuate people the best way possible. So, they built the castle no other than using stone. You might ask, what stone exactly? Well, it was indeed sandstone. Sandstone was available in Scotland and in fact most castles used it. In Crichton Castle's instance, it was probably quarried nearby. Also, sandstone was a relatively soft material which can be used for carving intricate designs. The benefit of having this soft material is that the skilled masons who built Crichton Castle had an easier time carving into stone. And you can see that in some of the stone turrets that were carved on the castle. The same material was also used to construct these very space-saving spiral staircases, or infamously known as turnpikes. However, since sandstone was a soft material, it was prone to erosion, and unfortunately a lot of design of Crichton Castle looked more subtle or completely eroded. When the castle was proof against such weapons as trebuchets and crossbows, it was time to make it a little more dominant. So, the simple tower house that was Crichton Castle soon turned into a well-constructed complex with mainly 3 towers. 2 towers were built for additional defense. One of the towers had a vaulted basement with timber entressols and a vaulted hall above. Unfortunately, the southwest corner of the tower collapsed because of possible erosion or lack of care, which again I mentioned in the first part of Crichton Castle's history. The tower was then finished with a barmkin, which is basically this. William Crichton made extensions to the castle, including a second tower on the southern corner of the castle. Between those 2 towers, creating an early entrance to the castle. What is unique about this tower though was that it had an entrance of its own from the outside. Inside the tower it had cellar rooms with arched ceilings, so the structure stayed strong. This practice can be traced back from the Egyptian times. There were also 2 halls, on the first floor and on the second. It was decided later in the 15th century to add a 6-story tower with several bedrooms and garderobes. 6 stories, that must be a very tall tower at that time, I must admit. Then, it was finished with a northern range. Subsequently, the castle ending up with a courtyard, which was refurbished in the 16th century. The castle's most prominent feature is the Italian-influenced courtyard facade, which is enclasped further on the northern range. In fact, it is so prominent in design that it was supposedly inspired by a house in Italy called Palazzo dei Diamanti, Palace of Diamonds in English, in the town of Ferrara. It was common for the elite to go around trips or even study around Europe, and getting inspired by such quaint architecture, therefore bringing it to Scotland, as it was also seen as something new and refreshing at that time. Francis and his wife proudly carved their initials on that building together, with an archer representing Francis's position as Lord Admiral of Scotland. He also added the first modern-style staircase in order to impress other nobles of his time. He also built a large stable block for the horses with a horseshoe-shaped entrance and some lodgings above. Francis Stewart also added coffered panels to support the ceiling with intricate design to further add elegance and splendour to this castle. Now, I focus mainly on the development of the castle over time, and now let me tell you about the interior and function of this castle, in order to give you a glimpse of how the castle really ran. Let's start. Or apparently the construction here, this wall was inspired by architecture of where they had in Italy. And this was inspired by the architecture in Italy there. So yeah, it's really nice, and I'm really surprised that it still lives to today. Alright, so the blue outline of the floor was the beginning of the tower house at the 14th century. It was used just as a mere entrance to the main tower house. The red outline of the floor was the bakehouse. This was the newest addition to the castle, which obviously produced bread, but might have been used for overall retail production. The green outline is where Francis Stewart built his known Italian facade that proudly faces the courtyard, making a good impression to the visitors of the medieval times. The black outline were probably rooms where merchants sold their goods here, or might have been used for safekeeping for the Crichtons. Either way, it makes this castle a lot more spacious, giving an illusion as if the castle has more space than it really has. I think I might have actually said it wrong, but yeah, it's a really nice. In fact, this wall in front of you is a later wall which was built apparently in the 16th century to create two small bed chambers. So now let's go to the first floor. The red outline is the Hall of Keep. It is very synonymous to just an ordinary hall, however it had a special function. It was used as a last resort place if the rest of the castle went to ruin, which sometimes often did. Since the tower house had the strongest structure, hence the Hall of Keep was chosen at this location. The green outline is drawing room, or in other words, solar room. It was used almost like a private living room, but with more light entering the space. That's all it was. The blue outline was the Great Hall where all the main events would start. It was a multifunctional room, but also quite modern for that time, and only the royalty would have such rooms. To be honest, they were even lucky if they had even 3 halls. It was used for receiving guests, dine with the whole household, even things like speeches and declarations were also spoken there. It was almost used like a forum in the Roman times. The black outline was a court. Since in the Middle Ages war was quite prevalent and defense was a high priority, courts had to be inside the castle. It was used like an entrance for the castle, giving the first impressions to the visitor. It was the most public space out of all the other rooms in the castle. Now, finally, let's go to the second floor. The second floor is almost a repetition of everything else in this castle, but the red outline features another hall, which probably had a similar function. Keep in mind that any part of the castle could go in ruins after an invasion was done, so it was crucial for the castle to have spare rooms like these, just in case. In the last resort, they could have been used as temporary bedchambers or garderobes. So, you can see that although the castle might be quite small compared to others, it still has quite a lot of things in it that makes this castle almost impossible to uncover fully. Please comment down below if you would like more about the architecture of this castle, as I think there are still some details I could uncover, together with dates and such. Anyway, let's go to the last segment of this video. It's geography. Now, you will get to know where this mysterious castle that I have talked about all along sits. Well, let me give you a bit of background then. So, Crichton Castle is about 15 miles away from Edinburgh. It was in the region of Midlothian, placed in location vulnerable to attack from England at that time, since it is not surrounded by any cities from the south. The castle was well thought out in terms of its surroundings though, since it sits on the hill overlooking the River Tyne, sitting on the northern side. However, it was close enough for it to have good connections in Edinburgh, but far enough to have a good amount of space for it to be built. Deer Street, as it is known today, is a ruined ancient road that goes back to the Roman times that led to Edinburgh, and a lot of traffic came from England, so defences were crucial. Today, Crichton Castle is situated near a village with the same name. It is also 3.2 kilometers from the village Pathhead, yes, with double H, about the same distance from Gorebridge also. So, unfortunately, I'm very sorry to say, but that ends the history, architecture and geography of this castle. I hope this very insignificant castle has turned into a very interesting structure that still proudly stands in Scotland. If you would like information on where, when or where to visit this castle, please visit the Visit Scotland website, as they have more information about when to visit it and when not to and at what times than I do. Link will be in the description. The sources for the information I took will be listed in the description below. Since I'm finished about the castle, I will go on investigating the next castle I have in mind. However, this time I want you, my castle fanatics, to comment below on which castle you want me to do next. Just 3 castles of your choice. Will it be Blackness Castle? Perhaps the Urquhart Castle? Maybe Haley's Castle? Nonetheless, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like on this video. I am always open for criticism and queries in the comment below. Anyway, your decision on which castle to pick lays on your hands. Goodbye, and hope you can visit this wonderful and interesting castle. When you can.